Welcome back to HFY Soundscape, the best channel for HFY sci-fi tales. They laughed before he finished his first sentence. Not politely, not awkwardly. They laughed the way victors laugh at ruins. Commander Arlen Voss felt the sound roll across the chamber, like pressure before a storm. Clicking mandibles, harmonic hisses, even a few slow claps from the upper tiers. This was the High Concord Hall of Lira, a place built to remind lesser species exactly where they stood. The ceilings were too high, the lights too bright, the silence between laughter too sharp. Arlen stood in the Terran delegation alcove, a narrow platform pushed against the outer curve of the hall. No banners, no guards of honor, just a translation node blinking patiently at his collar and a data slate that suddenly felt useless in his hands. He had been warned this would happen. Humanity was new. Too new. They had arrived in the galactic community not through invitation, but through endurance. Through surviving wars they were never meant to win. Through rebuilding faster than anyone expected. Through refusing to disappear. The KRYH Dominion and the Aurelian Compact had been at war for decades. Star systems burned. Trade lanes collapsed. Entire civilizations learned new words for grief. This summit was meant to end that war. Humans were observers only. That was made very clear. Arlen began again, his voice steady despite the noise. Terran analysis suggests that the proposed armistice leaves unresolved. A tall KRYH magistrate raised one clawed hand, silencing him with casual authority. "Observer Voss," the magistrate said, voice amplified and smooth. "Your species has no standing in this matter. You are educational guests." More laughter. Arlen had seen this pattern before. Not here, but elsewhere. On border stations. In first contact briefings. In the eyes of species that mistook restraint for weakness. He noticed the shift before anyone else did. 3 rows back. A junior Aurelian honor guard. Blue-gray skin pulled tight along his jaw. Fingers tightening around a ceremonial staff that had never been meant for use. His breathing slightly off rhythm. Arlen's pulse quickened. This was wrong. Treaties did not feel like this when they were real. They felt boring, slow, exhausting. This room was none of those things. The smiles were too practiced. The stillness too careful. The Concord Hall gleamed with symbols of peace while hiding the weight of unfinished violence. And then movement. Someone stepped forward beside him. Lira Kael. She had not been scheduled to speak. She was listed as a cultural liaison. A soft role. A harmless role. Someone to smile, translate, and disappear into the background. She did none of those things. Lira was taller than Arlen by a fraction, her dark hair tied back in the simple style of deep space crews. No decorations. No medals. Just the thin silver band at her wrist, marking her as Terran-born. She did not look at the council. She looked at him, and then she took his hand. The laughter faltered. Not stopped yet. Just stumbled. The translation nodes across the chamber flickered as multiple species tried to understand the gesture. Physical contact during formal proceedings was rare. Intimate. Loaded with meaning. Lira's grip was firm. Steady. Human. Arlen felt something settle in his chest. Not courage. Something sharper. Resolve. The KRYTH magistrate tilted his head. Explain this interruption. Lira finally spoke, her voice calm, carrying without amplification. You invited observers because you wanted witnesses. Witnesses remember what really happened. A murmur rippled through the hall. Arlen realized then that this was not part of any plan he had been briefed on. Good, because the best human moments never were. Before anyone could respond, Lira took one step forward, still holding his hand, and said the sentence that would change everything. "We are not here to beg for relevance," she said. "We are here to warn you." Silence fell like a held breath, and somewhere deep in the hall, the junior guard's ceremonial staff shifted, just a little. Something was about to break. "Hold on, before we get into the real stuff. I want to know, what are you doing at this exact moment while hearing my voice? I love seeing your answers down below in the comments." Arlen squeezed Lira's hand once. The council leaned in, and the laughter was gone. The silence that followed her warning was heavier than the laughter had been. Commander Arlen Voss felt it press against his ears, against his ribs, like the vacuum outside a hull breach. Every species in the high Concord Hall reacted differently. Some leaned back, some leaned forward. A few did not move at all, which was worse. Lira Kael did not release his hand. That mattered. The KRYTH magistrate's eyes narrowed, vertical pupils contracting as internal processors raced. A warning, he said slowly, from an observer species with no fleet presence in this quadrant. Clarify. Lira nodded once, as if she had expected that exact response. Gladly. Arlen realized then that she was not improvising. Not entirely. Her breathing was controlled, her posture open. She looked like someone who had already accepted the cost of what came next. We reviewed the Armistice framework, Lira continued. The borders you plan to freeze. The patrol gaps you are leaving intentionally unmanned. The joint security clause you believe will prevent escalation. A faint hum rippled through the chamber as multiple aides pulled up shared documents. That clause, she said, creates a vacuum. The Aurelian High Speaker, a towering figure of layered crystal and light, shifted. Explain. In 6 standard cycles, Lira said, pirate coalitions will fill that vacuum, not raiders, organizers. They will claim neutrality under your treaty language and establish supply hubs in the unmonitored zones. Murmurs spread. Arlen felt the grip on his hand tighten slightly. Not fear. Emphasis. The KRYDH will accuse the Aurelians of covert support. Lira went on. The Aurelians will respond with sanctions. Proxy strikes will follow. The war resumes under a different name. The junior Aurelian guard, 3 rows back, swallowed hard. The KRYDH magistrate let out a thin, humorless sound. You expect us to believe this forecast came from a species that discovered slipstream travel less than a century ago? Lira finally let go of Arlen's hand and stepped fully into the open floor. Yes, she said, because we learned it the hard way. That got attention. Arlen felt every eye swing back to him, then to her. Humans rarely spoke about their early years out here. The losses, the mistakes, the systems they thought were safe until they weren't. Lira raised her wrist and activated a projection. The hall filled with images. Burned stations. Civilian transports drifting without power. Emergency beacons blinking until they went dark. Dates and coordinates scrolled past in clean, simple text. These were human trade routes, Lira said, protected by treaties that looked strong on paper. The KRYTH magistrate leaned forward despite himself. We trusted the wording, she continued. Others trusted the loopholes. The projection shifted. A chart appeared, showing population recovery curves. Human curves dipped sharply, then rose. Fast. Arlen knew this part. Everyone did. Humanity rebuilt. They always did. What you see here, Lira said, is not strength. It is adaptation. She turned slowly, making sure the entire hall was looking at her. You are about to make the same mistake we made. And unlike us, you will not recover quietly. The Aurelian High Speaker's light dimmed slightly. A sign of concern. The KRYDH magistrate folded his claws together. And what do humans propose? A rewrite? More delays? No, Lira said. We propose witnesses with authority. That caused an uproar. Observers did not have authority. That was the point. Arlen stepped forward then, heart pounding, voice steady. Terran crews have operated in contested zones for decades. We are trusted by independents because we do not claim territory. Assign us to the patrol gaps. Joint oversight. Transparent reporting. A sharp laugh came from the upper tiers. You would place your fragile ships between us? Yes, Arlen said simply. Because no one wants to be the one who fires first at humans. Not anymore. The room went quiet again. That was true. Humanity had earned a strange reputation. Not for conquest. For consequences. The junior guard ceremonial staff slipped from decorative position to ready stance. The KRYTH magistrate's gaze flicked to him. Then back to Lira. You are asking us to trust you, he said. Lira met his eyes without flinching. No, We are asking you to watch us." A long pause. Then the high speaker spoke, voice resonant. "If we accept this, then you are wrong." Lira did not hesitate. "Then history will forget us." Arlen felt his chest tighten. "And if you are right?" the speaker asked. Lira's eyes softened, just for a moment. "Then millions of lives do not have to learn the lessons we already paid for." The hall began to buzz with private channel chatter. Arlen realized something was unfolding far faster than protocol allowed. And somewhere behind the council dais, security barriers powered down just a fraction. Not enough to notice, unless you knew what to look for. No one announced the shift in power. That was how Arlen knew it was real. The high Concord Hall had a rhythm, formality, predictable pauses where translators synced and aides whispered. That rhythm fractured as overlapping private channels lit up across the chamber. The quiet was no longer ceremonial. It was analytical, dangerous. Lira returned to Arlen's side, close enough that only he could hear her breathe. "They're running projections," she murmured. He nodded without looking at her. "So are their militaries." Across the hall, translucent data panes flickered behind the council dais. Probability trees branched and collapsed in real time. Arlen caught fragments, casualty estimates, economic fallout, timeline accelerations, and then something else. The junior Aurelian guard, 3 rows back, shifted his weight again. Too much, too often. Arlen's instincts, sharpened by years in border negotiations that went wrong, flared hot. That guard was not watching the council anymore. He was watching the KRYTH delegation. Lira felt it too. "Arlen," she said softly, "that staff is not ceremonial." He swallowed. "I know." The KRYDH magistrate raised one claw, requesting silence. The room obeyed slowly, reluctantly. "The Terran proposal," he said, "is unconventional." That was diplomatic language for threatening. "We will recess for internal consultation." Security drones hummed to life along the ceiling tracks. Arlen exhaled, a fraction of tension releasing. A recess meant delay. Delay meant survival. Then the Aurelian guard moved. It happened in less than a second. The staff snapped open, segments unfolding into a focused energy lance. The guard's jaw clenched, eyes locked on the KRYTH magistrate. The chamber erupted. Lira reacted first. She shoved Arlen sideways, just as the lance fired, the beam slicing through the space where his head had been. Heat scorched his collar. The impact shattered the magistrate's dais in a spray of molten crystal. Screams echoed. Security drones dropped, shields flaring. Delegates scattered, some diving behind seating tiers, others frozen in shock. The guard fired again. Missed, because a human moved. Arlen did not think. He acted. He lunged forward, grabbing a fallen KRYTH honor spear. Too heavy, too long. He swung anyway. The spear struck the guard's arm, deflecting the lance, just enough that the beam carved a glowing trench through the floor instead of another body. Lira was already moving, sprinting toward the guard with a speed that startled even Arlen. She slid across the polished floor, came up inside the guard's reach, and drove her shoulder into his chest. They crashed into a column. The guard roared, strength surging. Lira grimaced but held on, wrenching the lance sideways. It discharged again, blowing a chunk out of ceiling. Security finally converged. Restraint field snapped into place, pinning the guard mid-struggle. The lance clattered to the floor, power core winding down. Silence followed. Not the calm kind, the stunned kind. Arlen's heart hammered as he stumbled toward Lira. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, breath unsteady but eyes sharp. Later. The KRYTH magistrate emerged from behind a shield, robe scorched but intact. His gaze moved from the restrained guard to Arlen, to Lira. "You were correct," he said quietly. The Aurelian high speaker's light pulsed erratically. That guard was acting alone. It said too quickly. Lira's jaw tightened. "No," she said. "He wasn't." She pointed to the projection still hovering in the air, frozen mid-analysis. "Your probability models," she said. "They just updated." The high speaker hesitated. "Say it," Arlen said. The speaker's light dimmed. If the attack had succeeded, retaliation would have been immediate. And the treaty? Lira asked. Void, the speaker admitted. A low sound rolled through the hall. Not anger. Fear. The KRYTH magistrate turned to the council. This is what the Terrans warned us about. He looked back at Arlen. Your people saw this coming. Arlen met his gaze. We recognized the pattern. Lira stepped forward, voice steady despite the chaos around them. This was a test. Someone wanted to see how fragile this piece really was. The restrained guard thrashed against the field, snarling in a language Arlen did not need translated. Security dragged him away. The high speaker's voice dropped. If this information reaches the fleets. It already will, Lira said, unless we control the narrative. Another pause. Another shift. The KRYTH magistrate straightened. Then the recess is cancelled. Gasps rippled through the chamber. We will continue, he said, with Terran participation. Arlen felt Lira's hand find his again. But this time, the grip was different. This time, it was the grip of someone who knew they had just stepped onto a path with no return. And above them, unseen by most, a secure channel blinked open. Someone else had been watching. The doors of the High Concord Hall sealed shut, with a sound like a verdict. Emergency lighting softened from crimson back to ceremonial white, but the tension did not fade with the color shift. If anything, it sharpened. Delegates returned to their seats slowly, eyes tracking every movement, every flicker of a shield generator. The illusion of safety was gone. Arlen Voss felt it in his bones. This was no longer diplomacy. This was damage control on a galactic scale. The KRYTH magistrate remained standing. All recording devices are now restricted, he announced. What follows will not leave this chamber without consensus. That was unprecedented. Lira leaned slightly toward Arlen. They're afraid, she whispered. Good. Across the hall, the Aurelian high speaker reconfigured its light patterns, settling into a cooler spectrum. The attack was not sanctioned, it said, but its implications cannot be ignored. Then do not ignore them, Lira replied. A new projection bloomed between the delegations. This one was not human. It showed fleet positions, mobilization readiness, supply line stress points. Arlen recognized the markers immediately. They're closer than they should be, he said. The KRYTH magistrate inclined his head. Both fleets were maintaining defensive readiness. Lira did not hide her skepticism. Defensive readiness does not put strike groups 12 hours from contested space. Silence followed. The high speaker's voice lowered. Fear accelerates preparation, and preparation accelerates war, Lira said. Arlen stepped forward, aware that every word now carried weight. Someone wanted that guard to fail, he said. A successful assassination would have justified immediate retaliation. His failure still proves intent. The KRYDH magistrates' claws tapped together. You suggest a third party. Yes, Arlen said. One that profits from chaos. The projection shifted again. New symbols appeared. Trade routes. Black market hubs. Unaligned factions. The room stirred. Lira pointed to a cluster of nodes near the patrol gaps she had warned about earlier. These groups thrive when borders are unclear, she said. Peace threatens them. The high speaker's light flickered. You are suggesting coordinated manipulation on a scale that would require immense resources. Lira met its gaze. We know. Arlen felt the weight of her words settle. Humanity had encountered this before. Shadow alliances. Wars fed from behind the curtain. They had learned to look past flags and slogans, to follow logistics and timing. The KRYDH magistrate studied them both. If we accept Terran oversight, he said, you will become targets. Lira nodded. We already are. That earned a low murmur from the chamber. The magistrate's tone shifted, becoming less formal, more honest. Why involve yourselves at all? You gain nothing. Arlen answered this one. Because if this war reignites, he said, it will not stay contained. And because we know what it costs to arrive too late. The words were simple. They landed hard. The high speaker dimmed. There is another concern. All eyes turned. Our internal review suggests the attacker had access to restricted movement codes. It admitted. Codes issued this morning. The implication rippled outward like a shockwave. Someone inside the delegation had helped. Security field strengthened instantly. Armed sentinels repositioned. Lyra's expression did not change, but Arlen felt her hand tighten around his. Then time is not on our side, she said. You need a stabilizing action. Something visible. Something no one can misinterpret. The HFY magistrate considered. Such as, deploy joint patrols immediately, Lira said, with Terran vessels integrated. Not later. Not after review. Now. The High Speaker hesitated. Our fleets are not prepared for peace enforced by transparency. Lira interrupted. Neither were we. We adapted. Arlen added. Delay gives saboteurs room to move. The chamber buzzed with urgent side conversations. Then slowly, the HFY magistrate raised his claws. We vote, he said. The decision came faster than Arlen expected. Too fast for comfort. Approval. Conditional. Provisional. But real. A pulse of energy swept the hall as secure orders transmitted outward. Fleets shifted. Commands updated. The war's momentum changed direction. Lira exhaled for the first time since the attack. Arlen allowed himself a breath as well. That was when the lights dimmed again. Not emergency. Not ceremonial. Something else. A private channel request flashed on Lyra's wrist console. Encrypted. Priority levels she had never seen before. Her eyes flicked to Arlen. This isn't from them, she said quietly. Before he could respond, the message auto-opened. A single line of text appeared. You just stepped into someone else's design. And beneath it, a symbol neither of them recognized. Yet, the message vanished the moment Lira tried to trace it. No source. No relay signature. No identifiable encryption family. That alone was terrifying. Arlen watched her expression tighten. The calm focus she used when something refused to fit into known systems. That wasn't posturing, he said. That was a warning. Yes, Lira replied. And it was meant for us alone. Around them, the High Concord Hall was settling into a new configuration. Delegates were no longer seated by empire, but by function. Military near military. Trade near logistics. Humans, for the first time, were not pushed to the margins. That change did not feel like a victory. It felt like exposure. The HFY magistrate approached, his guards forming a respectful but unmistakable perimeter. Terran representatives, he said, lowering his voice. We will need full disclosure. Arlen inclined his head. You'll have it. Lira hesitated, then spoke. There are limits. Some things we learned by surviving them. The magistrate studied her, then nodded. Understood. Across the chamber, the Aurelian High Speaker dimmed its outer glow. The fleets report unusual activity along the neutral lanes, it said. Vessels without registry. Coordinated movement. Lira closed her eyes briefly. They're repositioning. Who? Arlen asked. She looked at him. The ones who benefit if this fails. A new projection appeared. This one built from fragmented sensor data. Dozens of small fleets moving independently, but along converging vectors. Pirates, yes. But disciplined. Supplied. Patient. Arlen felt a chill. This isn't a raid network. It's a shadow navy. The High Speaker's voice lowered. If they strike now, during treaty transition, they won't strike yet, Lira said. They want us to overreact, to fracture trust. The HFY magistrate tapped a claw against the floor. And how do humans know this? Arlen answered quietly. Because we were once on the receiving end of the same strategy. Lira activated her console again. New data streamed in. Human outpost telemetry. Merchant guild alerts. Civilian traffic anomalies. They're testing response times, she said, mapping hesitation. Arlen glanced at the council. You asked earlier why we involved ourselves. This is why. We recognize predators that hunt systems, not ships. The magistrate's eyes narrowed. Then speak plainly. What is their next move? Lira hesitated. That alone made Arlen uneasy. They will force a moral dilemma, she said. A situation where saving lives breaks the treaty, and honoring the treaty costs lives. Silence followed. The high speaker's light fractured into sharp angles. Such a scenario would destabilize both empires. Yes, Lira said. That's the point. Arlen's console chimed. A priority message from Terran Command. He opened it. His jaw tightened. What is it? Lira asked. Our civilian convoy near the Helix Drift, he said. Human flagged, but carrying mixed species refugees. The KRYDH magistrate stiffened. That route is within the new patrol gap. And it's just gone dark, Arlen finished. The chamber erupted in noise. The high speaker's voice cut through it. If Terran vessels intervene unilaterally, they'll call it a breach, Lira said. If we wait, people die. Arlen felt the weight of the decision slam into him. This was the dilemma she had predicted. Not theoretical. Immediate. The KRYTH magistrate's claws flexed. We cannot authorize action without Joint Command review. How long? Arlen demanded. Too long, Lira said quietly. She looked at him then, really looked at him, as if measuring something deeper than rank or protocol. I can divert the patrol, she said. Unofficially. Arlen's breath caught. That would make you responsible. She nodded. It already does. The high speaker spoke, voice heavy. If this is a trap. It is, Lira said, but it's also real. Arlen knew she was right. He turned to the magistrate. If we save them, he said, and the treaty survives, you gain legitimacy. If we fail, you can disavow us. The magistrate held his gaze for a long moment. Then he looked away. I saw how you moved when the attack happened, he said quietly. I will not stop you. That was not permission, but it was enough. Lira's fingers flew across her console. Commands routed. Signals masked. A human patrol group changed course. Arlen watched the convoy marker on the projection, its signal weak, but alive. Then another symbol appeared. Unidentified. Large. Closing fast. Lira swallowed. They've committed. The Shadow Navy had made its move, and humanity was about to be tested in front of the entire galaxy. The convoy feed flickered back to life in fragments. Audio first. Screams layered with alarms. Then visuals, shaking, low resolution. The camera mounted somewhere along a civilian transport's outer hull. Stars streaked as the ship veered hard, engines overloading. Arlen's hands curled into fists. How long, he asked. Lira's eyes stayed locked on the data. For minutes until intercept. Maybe less. The high Concord Hall had transformed into a war room. Delegates clustered around projections. Military advisors whispered urgently. No one laughed now. No one dismissed humans as irrelevant. The unidentified vessel's profile resolved further. Angular. Modular. Designed for adaptability rather than elegance. The KRYDH magistrate's voice dropped. That hull pattern, it does not belong to any known pirate syndicate. Lira nodded grimly. Because it isn't pirate-built. It's composite. Multiple manufacturers. Multiple donors. A shadow fleet. The Human Patrol Group, 3 light cruisers, and a support frigate, appeared on the map, burning hard toward the convoy. Arlen knew those ships. Not by name, but by type. Fast. Underarmed by galactic standards. Crewed by people used to making impossible choices. They're going to cut it close, he said. Too close, Lira replied. The unidentified vessel fired first. Energy flared across the feed as a wide dispersal blast washed over the convoy. Not lethal. Disabling. Engines stuttered. One transport began to drift. The high speaker's light pulsed sharply. They are not killing them. No, Lira said. They're baiting us. The human patrol dropped out of slipstream in a flash of distortion. Arlen's breath caught. The first cruiser slid between the convoy and the attacker without hesitation. Shields flaring bright as the second blast struck. The impact rattled the feed. Human vessel is hailing. An aide announced. The audio switched. This is Terran Patrol Echo 1. A calm voice said. You are engaging protected civilian traffic. Disengage immediately. The shadow vessel did not respond. Instead, it launched drones. Dozens of them. Small. Fast. Swarming. Point defense. Arlen muttered. The human cruisers responded instantly, fire stitching space with precision bursts. Drones vanished in flashes of light. More replaced them. The shadow vessel advanced, slow and deliberate. They want to force a close-quarters exchange, Lira said. If a Terran ship fires first at that range, they'll broadcast it. The KRYDH magistrates' claws dug into the floor. They are cornering you. The convoy drifted helplessly behind the human ships. Echo 1 to all Terran units. The voice crackled, switching to rescue priority. Escape pods launched from the transports, small sparks against the vast dark. The shadow vessel surged forward. Arlen felt time compress. They're going to ram, he said. No, Lira replied. They're going to board. Magnetic clamps shot out, locking onto the disabled transport. The shadow vessel's hull split, revealing troop bays. The high speaker's voice sharpened. If civilians are taken, they'll disappear, Lira said, and the treaty will still break. The human commander's voice returned, strained but steady. We cannot stop the boarding without risking civilian casualties. Arlen's mind raced. There was no good move left. Then the support frigate did something unexpected. It cut its engines, drifted, directly into the shadow vessel's path. What are they doing? Someone gasped. Lira's eyes widened. They're sacrificing maneuverability. The frigate rotated, aligning its hull between the boarding bays and the transport. No weapons fire, no shields, just mass. The shadow vessel hesitated. A heartbeat passed, then another. The frigate broadcast a single message on open channels. We are human. You will not take them. The shadow vessel fired. The blast tore through the frigate's side, venting atmosphere in a violent plume. The ship held position anyway. The boarding clamps missed. The human cruisers surged forward, seizing the opening, weapons flaring. Precision strikes disabled the shadow vessel's drives without destroying it. Silence fell across the feed. The convoy began to stabilize. In the high Concord hall, no one spoke. The high speaker's light dimmed to a soft glow. They risked everything, it said. They always do, Arlen replied. Lira exhaled shakily, and they didn't fire first. The shadow vessel drifted, powerless. The human commander's voice returned. Terran Command, this is Echo 1. Civilians secured. Hostile vessel disabled. Cheers did not erupt. Something deeper happened instead. Respect. Then another alert chimed. Multiple. Lira's console flooded with new data. More vessels, she said quietly. The shadow fleet is dispersing. Arlen frowned. Retreating. No, she said. Repositioning. The KRYDH magistrate turned to them. They are adapting. Yes, Lira said. Just like us. She looked at Arlen, eyes steady. This was only the first test. The galaxy reacted before the hall did. News did not spread through official channels first. It never did. It spread through civilian feeds, merchant relays, and emergency bands. Shaky footage of a human frigate drifting, hull torn open, still holding position. Audio of a calm voice refusing to move. Rescue pods spinning free behind it. Within minutes, the narrative escaped control. Arlen watched the data cascade across the projections. Civilian sentiment indexes spiked. Neutral worlds lit up with commentary. The word repeating most often was simple. Human. Not as a species label. As a description. The high Concord hall felt smaller now. Less like a throne room. More like a room where decisions finally had consequences. The KRYDH magistrate broke the silence. That vessel violated no clause, he said carefully. They did not initiate fire. They acted to shield civilians. The Aurelian High Speaker's light pulsed in agreement. The treaty remains intact. That was the first victory. It did not feel like one. Lira's attention never left her console. They're learning faster now, she said. The Shadow Fleet didn't retreat in panic. They adjusted doctrine. To what? Arlen asked. To us, she replied. New projections appeared. Trade nodes rerouted. Pirate activity dropped sharply in some regions, spiked in others. False distress calls began appearing, then vanishing before response fleets could arrive. They're probing our instincts, Lira said. They know we'll answer calls for help. Arlen clenched his jaw. So they'll use that against us. Yes, she said, until it stops working. The KRYTH magistrate's voice lowered. Your people are becoming symbols. Arlen met his gaze. We don't get to choose that. Symbols attracted attention. Enemies. Expectations. The high speaker shifted. There is internal unrest, it admitted. Some factions view Terran actions as manipulative heroism. Lira snorted softly. Saving lives tends to upset people who profit from loss. The speaker did not deny it. Another alert chimed. This one was different. Lira froze. What is it? Arlen asked. She swallowed. A message. Open channel. Addressed to me. The room stilled. From the same source? Arlen asked. Yes, she said. But this time, it wants to be heard. The KRYTH magistrate stiffened. You will not. Lira activated the channel before he could finish. A voice filled the hall. Distorted, layered, impossible to assign to any known species. Humans, it said calmly. You have accelerated the timeline. Arlen felt a chill crawl up his spine. We expected observers, the voice continued. We did not expect participants. Lira stood straight. You expected silence. A pause. Then, almost amused, we expected predictability. The high speaker's light flared. Identify yourself. That would defeat the purpose. The voice replied. We are a coalition of interests. A correction force. Correction of what? Arlen demanded. Stagnation, the voice said. Empires grow complacent. Wars end. Markets stabilize. Power ossifies. We introduce motion. Lira's eyes hardened. You introduce suffering. Suffering is a metric, the voice replied. One that produces innovation. Arlen felt something cold settle in his chest. You think you're necessary. We are inevitable, the voice said. And you, humans, are inconvenient. Silence gripped the hall. You adapt too quickly, the voice continued. You refuse to polarize. You absorb loss without collapsing. That makes you unpredictable. Lira stepped forward. So you try to provoke us. Yes, the voice said, and you responded exactly as feared. Arlen's pulse quickened. By saving people. By inspiring them, the voice replied. That is far more dangerous. The KRYTH magistrate spoke, voice tight. What do you want? Another pause. Longer this time. We want you to choose. The voice said. Remain symbols, and we escalate. Withdraw, and the game continues without you. Lira laughed softly. Not humor. Resolve. You misunderstand us, she said. We don't withdraw. The voice seemed to consider that. Then understand this. The projection shifted. New coordinates appeared. Human colonies. Border settlements. Trade hubs under Terran protection. We will not strike them yet, the voice said. That would unify too many factions. Arlen felt his blood run cold. But we will create situations, the voice continued, where saving everyone becomes impossible. The channel cut. The hall erupted into noise. Lira turned to Arlen, her face pale but steady. They're declaring a philosophy, not a war. Arlen nodded slowly. Then we answer in kind. The KRYTH magistrate looked between them. Can your people withstand this attention? Arlen thought of the frigate drifting in space, of calm voices under fire. Yes, he said, but it will change us. Lira met his eyes. It already has. Above them, the projections continued to update. The game board was expanding, and humanity had just been marked as a variable no one could control. The next strike did not come with weapons. It came with choice. Arlen learned that lesson while standing in a quiet side chamber of the High Concord Hall, watching 3 separate projections play out at once. Lira stood beside him, arms folded, jaw set. Across from them, the KRYTH magistrate and the Aurelian High Speaker observed in silence. 3 locations, 3 crises, all unfolding within the same hour. A mining station on the edge of KRYTH space reported catastrophic life support failure. Thousands of workers trapped. Evacuation required immediate external power coupling. A civilian flotilla, mixed species, adrift near a collapsing star corridor. Their jump drives were misaligned. One wrong maneuver would tear them apart. A Terran agricultural habitat, recently established, experiencing orbital decay after a guidance system malfunction. Families aboard. Children. Arlen did not need to look at Lira to know she saw it too. They timed it, she said. So we can't be everywhere. The high speaker's light dimmed. Our fleets are mobilizing. Too far, Lira replied. Too slow. The KRYTH magistrate's voice was low. You can respond to one, perhaps two, not all three. This was the dilemma made real. Arlen's chest tightened. The Shadow Coalition had kept its promise. No direct attack, just engineered emergencies, each requiring the same limited assets. The human patrol group from earlier was damaged but operational. Another Terran task force was en route, but hours away. Which one do they expect us to choose? Arlen asked. Lira shook her head. That's the trick. They don't care which. The implications settled like weight. Any choice would be framed as abandonment of the others. Trust would fracture. The symbol would crack. Arlen closed his eyes briefly. Then he opened them. We don't choose, he said. The KRYTH magistrate frowned. That is not an option. It is, Lira said slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. If we stop thinking like a single force. She activated her console, pulling up Terran civilian networks, independent haulers, retired freighters, volunteer rescue guilds. We don't have the biggest fleets, she said, but we have the most distributed. Arlen felt a surge of grim pride, and they listened. Lira opened a wideband channel. No encryption, no orders. Any Terran vessel within range, she said, voice steady. This is Liaison Kael. We have multiple civilian emergencies. Choose the one you can reach fastest. Do not wait for authorization. The KRYTH magistrate stiffened. You cannot coordinate a response like that. We already are, Arlen said. Responses flooded in. Cargo pilots, survey crews, medical ships, even private yachts retrofitted with emergency gear. One by one, icons shifted course. The mining station's feed showed a battered or hauler docking, its crew venting their own power reserves to stabilize life support. The drifting flotilla received assistance from a pair of independent traders, their pilots guiding ships through the unstable corridor with manual precision. The Terran habitat's descent slowed as a salvage tug latched on, thrusters straining. The high speaker's light brightened in surprise. They act without command. They act with responsibility, Lira replied. Arlen watched the projections, heart pounding. This was risky, chaotic, unpredictable, human. Then the Shadow Coalition responded. False alerts spiked. Distress beacons multiplied, some real, some traps. The network strained. They're flooding the system, Lira said, trying to exhaust goodwill. Arlen leaned closer. Then we adapt. He keyed into the channel. Terran vessels, he said. Verify visually before committing. Share confirmations openly. The network adjusted. Information flowed laterally, not hierarchically. The false signals began to fail. The KRYTH magistrate exhaled slowly. You are turning civilians into a response force. No, Lira said. We're trusting them. Hours passed. Lives were saved. Not all, but far more than the Shadow Coalition had calculated. Finally, the crises wound down. The high speaker spoke softly. You denied them a clean narrative. Lira nodded. We didn't play their game. A new message arrived. Short, direct. This approach is inefficient. Arlen almost smiled. Lira looked at him. They don't understand. No, he said, and that scares them. The KRYTH magistrate straightened. You have changed the equation again. Lira's gaze was distant, at a cost. Arlen followed her eyes to the Terran habitat feed. Families hugging. Rescue crews exhausted. Symbols had faces now. The Shadow Coalition had wanted to prove that compassion was a weakness. Instead, they had learned something else. It scaled. And next time, they would not underestimate it. The Shadow Coalition went quiet. That was how Arlen knew the next move would be worse. For 3 days, no false distress calls appeared. No manipulated accidents. No anonymous warnings. Trade lanes stabilized. Patrol reports came back clean. Too clean. Lira did not relax. "They're recalculating," she said, standing before a projection of human response patterns. "We forced them to abandon disruption. That leaves demonstration." "Of what?" Arlen asked. "Control," she replied. The answer arrived sooner than expected. An emergency priority signal cut through the chamber, overriding every channel. Not local. Galactic. The image that appeared was unmistakable. A planet. Not a colony. Not a station. A fully populated world. The label scrolled beneath it in neutral script, Elendor Prime. The KRYTH magistrate went still. "That world is under joint protection." The Aurelian High Speaker's light fractured. 32 billion inhabitants. The feed zoomed in. Orbital infrastructure was already compromised. Defense arrays powered down in synchronized sequence, not destroyed. Disabled. "They didn't attack," Lira whispered. "They locked it." A message overlaid the image. No distortion this time. Clear. Calm. "We have taken control of Elendor Prime's orbital systems," the Shadow Coalition said. "No weapons deployed. No lives lost." Yet, Arlen felt sick. "This is impossible," the magistrate said. "Their networks are isolated." Lira corrected. "Someone left a door." The message continued. "We will not bombard your cities. We will not starve your people. That would be crude." A pause. "We will demonstrate dependency." Power grids flickered. Transportation halted. Atmospheric regulators dipped, just enough to trigger alarms, not deaths. Panic rippled through the feed. "If you attempt military intervention," the voice said, "systems will fail in ways that cannot be reversed quickly." The High Speaker's voice dropped to a whisper. "They have a planet hostage." The Shadow Coalition continued. "We require a response from humanity." Every gaze in the hall turned to Arlen and Lira. "You," the voice said, "who turned compassion into leverage. Speak." Arlen felt the weight settle fully now. This was no longer about treaties or patrol gaps. This was about belief. Lira stepped forward. "You want us to respond publicly," she said, "to prove something." "Yes," the voice replied. "Convince the galaxy that reliance on human intervention is sustainable." Arlen understood then. "They want to show that even humans must choose," he said, "between ideals and outcomes." Lira nodded. "If we fail, compassion looks naive. If we comply, we legitimize them." The KRYTH magistrate spoke urgently. "We cannot allow you to negotiate alone." Lira shook her head. "You already did." She activated a wideband broadcast. The image of Elendor Prime filled the galaxy. Lira's voice carried without force, without drama. "To the people of Elendor," she said, "we see you." The Shadow Coalition remained silent. "We are not here to trade your safety for influence," Lira continued, "and we will not pretend we can fix this alone." Arlen joined her. "We are asking every world watching to do something simple." The broadcast shifted, showing open-source repair schematics, network patches, emergency overrides. "We share what we know," Lira said, "freely." The High Speaker inhaled sharply. "You are giving away classified infrastructure knowledge." "Yes," Lira said, "because control depends on secrecy." The Shadow Coalition's voice cut in, sharper now. "You will destabilize critical systems." "We will decentralize them," Arlen replied. Across the feed, engineers on Elendor Prime began to move. Local technicians, civilian experts, off-world specialists chiming in. The coalition's grip began to slip. "Stop," the voice demanded. Lira shook her head. "You wanted a demonstration." Systems flickered back online. Not all. Enough. The coalition escalated, overloading secondary controls. But they were fighting thousands of minds now, not one centralized authority. "This is inefficient," the voice snapped. "So is tyranny," Arlen said. Minutes stretched. Then a crack. Elendor Prime's orbital defenses rebooted in safe mode. The coalition's presence faltered. "We are withdrawing," the voice said, colder than before. "This variable will be corrected." The feed cut. The hall erupted, not in celebration, but in stunned realization. Lira lowered her hand slowly. "They won't forget this," she said. "No," Arlen agreed. "But neither will the galaxy." Humanity had just refused to be the hero. Instead, they had invited everyone else to stand with them. And that changed everything. The High Concord Hall finally exhaled. Not with relief. Not with applause. With understanding. A slow, quiet recognition that the galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary, and that the rules had changed. Arlen Voss and Lira Kael stood together, the calm after 3 days of chaos, settling like gravity pulling them to the floor. They were exhausted, exhilarated, and aware that nothing would ever be the same again. The KRYDH magistrate leaned against the wall, claws tapping lightly. "I underestimated your species," he admitted, "and I now understand the weight you bear and the strength you wield." Arlen nodded, but he did not feel pride. Not yet. This isn't about strength. It's about choice. About people willing to act even when there's no perfect outcome. Lira glanced at him, her eyes softening. "We showed the galaxy what humans look like when we refuse to compromise our principles. That's more powerful than any weapon or fleet." The Aurelian High Speaker's light dimmed and shifted in recognition. "Your species has proven adaptability on a scale we did not anticipate. This will alter political calculations for decades." Arlen swallowed. "Or centuries," he said quietly. Outside the hall, the Terran fleets were already moving. Patrols realigned, civilian support networks stabilized, and news from Elendor Prime streamed back without distortion or interruption. Humanity's decentralized response had become the standard, a new model of intervention that no empire could ignore. And yet, the Shadow Coalition had not been defeated. Their presence lingered as a specter, a reminder that the galaxy was not safe, only that human ingenuity and cooperation had raised the cost of aggression. "Next time," Lira said, "they'll escalate faster, strike smarter, but now they know we aren't predictable. That terrifies them." Arlen looked at her. "You weren't supposed to step forward like that. Not during the council." She smiled faintly. "And yet I did. Because sometimes you have to break protocol to save lives." He squeezed her hand, remembering the first moment she had taken it in that hall. Then the first emergency, then the Shadow Coalition's messages, and now this victory, but earned in bloodless struggle. A calm alert buzzed. Both glanced at it. Terran command. Private. Priority. Debrief immediately upon return to human space. "Looks like the celebration will wait," Arlen said, exhaling. Lira laughed softly. "Good. We've learned nothing if we celebrate too soon." The KRYDH magistrate cleared his throat. "You are invited to address the combined council formally. There will be questions. You may answer as you see fit." Arlen felt the weight of the moment. Every eye in the hall would be on them. Every empire would record, analyze, and remember what humans had done. He glanced at Lira. "Together." "Always," she said, as they walked toward the central dais. Every step felt like a declaration. Humans had become more than observers, more than a wild card in galactic politics. They had become a symbol, one of action, morality, and the refusal to surrender humanity even when faced with threats designed to erode it. On the dais, cameras activated. Projections zoomed in on their faces. The chamber fell silent. Even the KRYTH magistrate seemed to pause, the weight of history pressing against him. Arlen took a deep breath. Delegates of the KRYTH Dominion, the Aurelian Compact, and observers across the galaxy. Today, humanity demonstrated something simple, that lives have value beyond calculations, that choice is as potent as force, and that compassion is not weakness but strategy. Lira stepped beside him, nodding. "We do not claim superiority. We claim responsibility. Responsibility for what we can protect, for what we can influence, and for what we refuse to abandon." A ripple passed through the hall. Some whispered. Some paused in thought. Every projection recorded it. Every historical ledger would remember. The Shadow Coalition's attempts to manipulate. to force decisions through fear, had failed. Humanity had set a precedent. The galaxy's most distributed, most adaptable species was willing to act in ways no one predicted, and do so without sacrificing principle. The KRYTH magistrate nodded slowly. Perhaps we have underestimated what it means to observe humans in action. Arlen allowed himself a small smile. Observation is only the beginning. Participation, that's where the difference is made. Lira turned to him. You know what this means. Yeah, he said. We'll have enemies who hate our methods, allies who rely on them, and stories that will inspire more than just humans. She laughed softly. I like those odds. Outside the High Concord Hall, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, not because the crises were over, but because a species had chosen to act with courage, ingenuity, and heart. The galaxy had been reminded what humans could do when they refused to be just another factor in someone else's calculations. And as Arlen and Lira walked off the dais, hands still intertwined, the first words of the title echoed in their minds. I wish I could marry her, not for romance alone, but for trust, for courage, for partnership in the face of impossible odds. They had changed the galaxy, together, and the story, humanity's story, was only beginning. If you enjoyed this story of courage, strategy, and human ingenuity, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, HFY Soundscape, for more incredible HFY sci-fi tales.